Hi, everyone, and welcome to week 14 of virtual launch for Sacrament Year 2. Hope you guys have had a great week, and we're getting ready to jump right into our lesson for this week. So let's review what we learned about last week. All right, last week, remember, we started on our second textbook for the year. We started on the book that's going to get you prepared for receiving your first communion this spring, all right? And we did a few of the episodes in the very first session, which was talking about why Sunday is special. And so we started off with a review of the 7 sacraments that we celebrate in the Catholic Church. You learned a little bit more about what each of those sacraments is about, why they're special, why we have them. And then you also talked about why Sunday is an important day for us as Christians, and of course also as Catholic Christians. Sunday is a day of rest, and Sunday is the day that we worship God. We go to church or Mass and we worship God. And it's also a day for us to relax because you also revisited the story of creation, and it focused on the part of the story of creation where God rested on the 7th day. So after God spent 6 days making the entire universe and everything in it, he took a rest on that last day, on that 7th day. And that tells us that rest is important, but also that rest is holy. And so that is why Sunday is a day of rest for us as Christians. We go to worship God at church, and then we also rest and enjoy spending time with our family and just enjoying that time together. We talked about that, and then you also learned about why it's important for us to listen for God. We touched a little bit on some of the different ways that you can listen for God while you're at Mass. And we're going to come back to that in other chapters moving forward, because being able to develop that habit of listening quietly for God or really paying attention, especially during Mass, for those moments when God might be speaking to you in your heart or through the scripture reading or maybe through the homily that the priest is giving, maybe through the music that we sing. So there's all different ways that God might speak to us, but we have to be paying attention in order to hear his voice, all right? So this week we are starting on session 2. And we are only going to be covering episodes 1, 2, and 3 this week. Okay, so session 2, episodes 1, 2, and 3. Excuse me. So, what are we going to be learning about this week? Or more, I should say, what are Ben and Sarah going to be helping you learn about this week? All right, so we are going to start off talking about different kinds of prayer. All right, there are several different kinds of prayer that we have in the church and when we're praying. So in the first episode for this week, Ben and Sarah are going to be giving you some examples and showing you the different types of prayer that we have. So that's in the first episode. In the second episode, we are going to be learning about, and I got to check my notes so I remember, going over to God's house, okay? This is an episode that actually features Sarah and her dad, okay? So we're talking about why it's important to go to God's house, and we're talking about, what is God's house? What do you think God's house? Where do you think God's house is? If he said the church, you are correct. That's right. So think about a friend. Okay. Now, I also realize things might be a little bit different right now because, of course, we're still in the middle of the pandemic and dealing with, taking safety precautions against COVID-19. So I understand right now you may not be going over to your friend's house as often as you used to before the pandemic. So think back, let's say, to, the good old days of 2019. Think about going to a friend's house, all right? Now, usually you go to a friend's house because it's somebody that you like. It's somebody that you like spending time with, okay? Now, also think about if you had a friend and you were, friends with that person, do you think that you would stay friends with that person very long if you never talked to each other, if you never did things together, if you never went over to each other's houses? How long do you think that friendship might last? Not very long, right? In order to keep a friendship with somebody, you have to spend time with that person, right? Well, it's the same thing with us, with our relationship with God. If we want our relationship with God to grow and be strong and have a really nice friendship with God, then we have to get into the habit of spending time with Him, right? It's hard to have a friendship with somebody that we never talk to and we never spend time with. That's not much of a friendship. It's the same way with God. And prayer, of course, is how we talk to God, all right? So that is how we talk. Prayer is how we talk to God, how we stay in communication with God. And then going to Mass on Sunday is like going to visit God in His house, right? Just like you would go over to a friend's house to play or hang out. Going to Mass on Sunday is going to God's house. And again, that's important to help us grow our relationship with God and grow in our friendship with God, and also to get to know God better, all right? So that's why it's important for us to, one of the many reasons why it's important for us to make going to Mass on the weekend a priority. Now, again, I know because these are unusual times with the pandemic that maybe you and your family are not actually going to the church building to celebrate Mass right now, and that's totally fine. Remember, we still have the option of watching Mass online, and that's really, right now, especially in the middle of the pandemic, that's the same thing as going to visit God in His house. So if you're not able to be in church, actually in the church building because of circumstances with the pandemic, that's totally fine. As long as you're still tuning in with your family to watch Mass online, that is just like visiting God with His house. It's kind of like FaceTiming with a friend right now. Like right now you might not be able to go over to your friend's house, but if you could FaceTime with your friend, or you could have a Zoom call with your friend. That's what it's kind of like with God and watching church online. Again, because right now we're kind of in the middle of an unusual situation in the world with the pandemic. Okay, so that's episode 2, and then finally episode 3. The question has Tiny. Do you remember Tiny? He's the kid that's really tall, which is kind of funny that his name is Tiny, right? Because he's the biggest kid. All right. Well, Tiny is asking Sister Rosa, who's a teacher at their school, a very important question, and that question is, why do we even why do we have to go to Mass on Sunday? Like, is it really that big of a deal? So Sister Rosa has a beautiful answer to that question, and that is what you're going to be learning about and talking about and exploring more in episode 3, okay? By the way, the answer to the question is yes, it's very important to go to Mass on Sunday. But Sister Rosa will do a great job explaining why, and also, teaching you why it's important to make some time for God, okay? Why it's important to make time for God. She's got a good point on that. So that is a very quick overview about what you're going to be learning from watching the videos for this week. Don't forget that you can follow along in the hard copy of your book, or if you want to look at the online version of the book, you can do that too. Or if you would simply like to watch the videos, that is also totally fine. Don't forget to take your quiz after you've watched the videos. Remember, that's the one thing you absolutely have to do in order to get credit. And then underneath the quiz, we've got our praise and worship songs for this week. And then there are the optional activities. Again, remember, they're totally optional. It's up to you if you would like to do all of them, one of them, none of them, whatever works best for you. There are, let me see if I can remember. I gotta check my notes for what the activities are. Oh, there is, I found a video that explains, another way of explaining the different kinds of prayer. And the thing I liked about this video is they have an example from the Bible that shows each different type of prayer. So I thought that was a nice touch if you're interested in watching that. I've got 2 different activities that can help you learn more about the different types of prayer and become familiar with them, okay? And then, the last activity is something called a PBJ prayer starter. It's a little kind of a craft type activity that you can do, and it could be something that you use by yourself, or it could be something that your whole family uses. In this case, PBJ stands for not peanut butter and jelly, but praised be Jesus, okay? And they're little cards that have they're kind of little things that can get your brain jogging about to how to start a prayer, and they're all about different ways that you can praise Jesus, or different things that you can praise Jesus for, which is why it's called PBJ, praised be Jesus. Okay? So again, that might be something if you're looking for an activity that you can maybe do with your whole family, that might be a fun option. Okay? So again, totally optional. You can pick and choose what you would like to do. I hope you enjoy watching the videos with Ben and Sarah this week. They have some really good points. The first episode is really kind of funny how they have a very creative way of teaching you about the different kinds of prayer. So I hope you enjoy that one. All right, I don't want to take up too much of your time because I know you want to get to those other videos. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I will see you right back here next week for the second half of session 2. All right, bye everybody. Take care.